So I don't think that the range thing is really an issue as much as because it just depends on whether the Borg have been there before and they basically want that area covered. At the time of the 21st and 22nd century, since the Borg had never been to the Alpha Quadrant, they simply weren't interested in extending their Wi-Fi coverage in that direction because they didn't have any cubes or anything like that going on there. And so if you drop some Borg, you'd go back in time and you drop some Borg in that time frame, they have no connection. So I could see that.
Unless they build like a hyper long range thing with advanced
right,
technology,
which is what they were trying to do in First Contact.
And regeneration, I think.
Yeah. And so that part of it makes sense. However, what doesn't make sense is why the Borg Queen apparently went along with them. And by the way, since when they killed the Borg Queen, all the Borg just die, why the hell is it that the Borg in regeneration survived? Because all the other Borg just died when the Queen died, but yet these two survived because they were, and they weren't buried in the ice at that point because it was just at the most a couple of days. And no, it's actually one day because I think they said First Contact was tomorrow when they first arrived. So
I'm just wondering, did they all die in the sense? Do they say in dialogue all the Borg have died?
Or they literally show them convulsing and exploding.
No, I understand that. But range is again an issue. You imagine if your central nerve system that is helping to center everyone, because we know that a Borg losing connection does not die. We've seen it.
Right,
it doesn't happen,
etc.
Yeah. So you could argue that if this is one of the most important 7, like the transport hub, it's one of the 7 most important unifying network features of the collective. This one Queen, the close ones might feel that, die, whatever, but the ones on the lower decks might be out of range, and those ones happen to be, because I mean that ship then also that Borg drone had to then fall to Earth on I don't remember how did those Borg get to Earth
when they as soon as this,
so the Queen wasn't dead yet, so they just the Queen wasn't dead yet.
The Queen beamed over to the ship, so they were still alive. They were in the ice and started to freeze, would be my assumption.
That was easy. Yeah, thanks, Stuart.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, but then again, that's not the point of this argument anyway. Now, here's... but no, that was just kind of a side note there. Then you mention, as an argument for the Queen being a construct, the fact that when she dies, she has this metallic head and spine that we see Picard then trying to be John McClane and crushing and all that. Every dead Borg on the Enterprise E had a metallic skeleton. They show it on screen. You see metallic arms, you see metallic legs, you see metallic heads. I freeze the frame in my review. I go back and look at my First Contact review. I froze on all of the dead bodies in engineering. Everything, and of course we know that except for a couple of them, most of them were assimilated crew members from the Enterprise E. And so, but they had Terminators underneath their skin.
Well, could it be that the nanites infiltrated the bone structure and created a metal skeleton, much like fossilization?
That's what I would assume the process is that because this was also the first time we saw nanite assimilation, and so I assume that part of the process is to literally change the structure of your bones from calcium to titanium or something.
Snazzy.
And so.
Good idea.
Yeah, so that makes perfect sense because they would be more effective in combat and all that. But that there is nothing special about what we saw about the Borg Queen's head.
Okay, so yes, they could, if we're assuming this is still a leap, but it makes sense, we'll go with it. There's turning bone to calcium. That does not equate to it can build unique devices in their brains. If you look at the Borg Queen's head, it had a unique spine that was unique because it had to go into things. It had unique lighting bits. It wasn't a skull, it was a unique piece of tech. It wasn't just an average Borg's head, it was a custom built
that had it was a species 125 skull.
She was not human. And every Borg has implants. Every Borg has, and so if you were to melt away, Locutus, for example, and let's say Locutus was assimilated by nanites and had a Terminator-looking skeleton underneath, and so you melted away everything flesh and blood, you would see not just his parts, but you would see all of his implants. And remember, they specifically say in Best of Both Worlds that some of those implants went into his brain. And so there's nothing that says that just because you see stuff in her means that it's not in other Borg.
But we know that assimilating somebody doesn't turn them into, the nanites can't create the hand. There's tech you add to them in surgery versus basic nanite stuff. So there's very different. So Locutus was fully done, very different to Random Crewman. Now he's got it in his blood. Now he's got a spouting one piece that is literally just.
But that's, you got to remember, the Borg keep evolving, and Locutus was much earlier.
I don't imagine Picard. They undid his skeletal bone titaniuming. Like, that was not a thing at any point until maybe First Contact. And then you could argue that she did. She was obviously, this is the central, as in Stargate.
Or those are her elite Borg. That
you have the first prime of Borg, and these guys have the full nanite treatment, where it's like, and obviously the most advanced. She's doing a tactical mission. Even though she's dealing with the past, maybe they might do something useful against her. So let's make them the armored Borg. I mean, there's no reason for a Borg tactical cube unless there's a reason to. And you could then double argue they have that for 8472. It helped fight them. Well, 8472, if they're titanium body, then they can't stab through you. So these Borg are a response to races that are now strong enough to physically assault you. So they're a new thing which never appeared beforehand.
By the way, Commander, real quick, I just want to show this to you. If you can see my video stream right now, here is the dead Borg in engineering. You can notice that every single one of them has a metallic head, metallic feet, metallic hands, all clearly in view.
That's just a dumb movie. For the general audience representation. It's not for the Star Trek fans.
So every single one of them was a Terminator underneath, even though they were just been assimilated.
But none of them had glowing bits, lighting bits, because when she was dead, they still lit up and stuff.
Unfortunately, I don't have the actual footage handy.
But did those guys have Starfleet uniforms on? Were those actually recently assimilated people, or just Borg that she brought over that could be the elite Borg? The ones, the Enterprise crew that were assimilated were on different decks. Absolutely.
Every dead Borg we saw looked like that.
And but we don't know how many she brought aboard. She could have brought aboard 20, and those are 20 she kept with her. I mean, you'd keep the ones that have, because think about it, if she had to,
the most important part.
If they had to assimilate every future crew member, most aren't going to get the fully advanced pieces because they take time to build, whereas the Borg she brought with her have the full shield generators, the full arms, the full head. So you would keep the most advanced Borg with you who have every bit of technology. So yes, they would be with her. That's more likely than them being the new Borg that have 27 hours of assimilation, which isn't even a priority.
I could as far as doing a retcon or a ad hoc explanation, I could kind of see that. However, I think it's pretty clear that the intent was that the Borg, being cyborgs, have Terminator skeletons.
I think the intent was that was never meant to be seen up close. That's why I never did a close up. That was like a cool.
It was done for a general movie audience because they wouldn't understand that.
And they're not going to do they weren't going to do just skeletons.
There's a shot where you see them a little closer because you see the camera pans through the dead bodies as you see Picard walking through the wreckage of engineering. As he's walking up.
I don't think any writers had any part of that. They didn't say, right, every other Borg had they saw the Queen, said, oh, she's got a metal head, we'll give him that. That was a purely makeup thing. Now, it is canon, sure, I'm not diminishing. But I don't think that was meant to be all Borg now have metal heads. That wasn't an intentional little teeny thing.
In a summary, at the end of the day, I think that the Queen absolutely defiles and ruins the Borg. It turns them from an ominous force and something that you cannot bargain with, something you cannot reason with, something that will eventually either, if you're looking at Q-Who, destroy you, or if you're looking at Best of Both Worlds, assimilate you. Either one is a horrifying concept, and it turns it into, just trick the and you'll be fine. Regardless of whether there's 1 or there's 50, regardless of whether she's a assimilated creature or some kind of construction, it doesn't matter. She ruins the Borg.
But did anything I said make it a little bit better for you?
No.
Really?
I still cannot stand her. I absolutely cannot stand the Queen because I love the Borg. That's the problem.
Well, no, you love the Borg from one appearance and another appearance. No, that's the irony. You love this bit of the Borg, but really most of the Borg you don't love.
No. I love the Borg from Q-Who, Best of Both Worlds, Regeneration, and Scorpion. So there are 4 solid appearances of the Borg that I love the collective in.
So you love like 15% of the Borg in Star Trek.
I think that Descent doesn't even count. Okay, I'm sorry, that doesn't count because they weren't even connected to the collective at all, and it's walking contradiction and Descent. And then when we look at First Contact and the post-Scorpion episodes of Voyager, they just became laughable.
I'm going to have to say that I appreciated what Samuel said about the AI. I thought that was really interesting, and it's a possibility. This is all speculation on our part, of course. But I do agree with Anti-Trekker, and I said this early on, that I thought they were more terrifying when they couldn't be reasoned with. They couldn't be stopped by just taking out one specific linchpin, so to speak. So I agree with both of you guys. Samuel, you brought up some points that I never considered before, so I'd like to thank you for that. Anyway.
Yeah, my summary, super interesting. I think the Borg evolved because you couldn't do too much. I'd love to do a third episode with you and say, well, how would you pitch a second Borg episode with a true Borg? Because I think you'd run to walls. You know, there'd be a one-off, two-off villain very quickly, and you'd realize wouldn't you need to evolve them to do so. I think the Borg, the way they evolved was odd, but if they'd done a smidge more thought out, they could have really made that into a great concept, because having this evolving race, having this single unifying force, but then you wouldn't it be cool like the Cylons? You know, you saw 6 sixes in a room, to see an episode where you have this holographical recreate, because obviously you have holograms in the Borg's chamber, the Queen, and you see like 20 appear in one room, and it's like, I'm Sector 16 Construct 4, Borg Queen 01, that sort of scene to show this is just the subdivided nature of the Borg, rather than she is the one random lady controlling it, because that is silly. But obviously, as I say, they evolve. They have Hugh's interaction with them. They have other people being assimilated and not. They have individuality. I mean, who knows? Like I said, at some point a race could have at some point the species of the Borg Queen could have been assimilated, and they realized this is a way of us doing more, because you see them expand a lot more in Voyager than you do in, say, TNG. They don't do much, quote unquote. I mean, you're in their space, you know what I mean? But you get a sense they are like expanding. So it feels like another era. Like they would be transport conduits earlier if they had them. That you get a sense they're it's new technology. So you could argue that the Borg Queen was part of a, ooh, this is interesting, we'll make this part of a whole. It might change them after the fact. That's fine. They wouldn't know that until afterwards. But it brings a whole load of other things. I think as the Borg would then grow even further beyond that construct, that creature would also then evolve, because you couldn't just have there's too much to process and such. Because there's a point when she has to search in her memory, where's the Borg drone in this thing? She can't access information straight away. It's a network. She's just whatever. But I like the points. I just you got to look at the canon, how it evolves, because you can't just say this is the one time it was a non-fleshed out villain that appeared once versus 20 appearances where it did have an evolution.
Just remember, kids, the Borg, 25% not crap.
27. No, we went up 27.
27% not crap.
All right, guys. Well, looking forward to your comments and thoughts down below. If you like this video, please click like.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Should too.
Exactly. And please check out Anti-Trekker. He's got some great rants and great discussions over on his channel. And we look forward to working with him more. Perhaps we should do a live with you talking about these kind of things, so we can get fan interaction as well on the fly and make it a 2-hour thing. That'd be much more conducive to this kind of conversation.
We had to stop ourselves both time. So
yes,
this is definitely a 2-hour discussion, maybe.
So if you missed the first part of the Borg discussion, go check that out. And I guess we'll see you guys next time. So again, thank you, Anti-Trekker, for joining us. And until next time, I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Coggins.
And I'm done.
He is. All right, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.